Hi everybody, this is Stephanie. Okay, so I have a confession. And if you're like me, you are now singing that song from, oh, what is it? I have a confession. Ha 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 ha. I don't remember who that's from. But anyway, that's going on in my head as I continue this video. As you can tell, I'm inside today with my red door, and we have been cheating on you. I'm so sorry. I just realized as I was on Lauren Without Fears YouTube channel live stream, and she was talking about my podcast, I realized in my podcast I have talked about this YouTube channel, but in this YouTube channel I have not talked about my podcast. I'm so sorry. Time-wise, I have not been neglecting you. I spend a lot of time studying and talking about studying Chinese, but in all honesty, I haven't really shared my full self with you. So thank you, Lauren, for the reminder. I'm going to put a link here with my podcast link. Now, we're probably going to move soon to a different podcast server and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't matter. Follow this link. Follow this link. What is my podcast about? It is not about learning Chinese. It is a much bigger picture of expat life, or life living in a different culture. And what I say that is it's based off of a blog that I wrote in 2003 when I first moved to Asia. I first moved to Taiwan, and I had a hell of a time with culture shock for a number of reasons, and I go into them. And I also had some really good experiences, of course, and I go into those too. And so the podcast right now for 166 episodes is based off of a reading of that blog, but then I expand out in each episode to different communities around the world and different aspects of living in a different culture, especially in a digital shared form. And so I expand out to that bigger community of living overseas and how people deal with living overseas, what kind of really good things happen to them when they live in a particular place, what kind of challenges, how they connect digitally, how they express their experiences digitally, to give you some ideas of what we've done so far. We talked about, there was a really good YouTube documentary on French expats around the world, so I highlighted that and shared that information with the podcast audience. We talked about the Africans who live in southern China. We talked about the Filipinos that live in the United Arab Emirates. And there's more of this coming, and there was one more group that I'm totally blanking right now because I didn't expect to make this video at all, but as I was going through the live stream with Lauren Without Fear, and I'll put her link here, I realized that I haven't talked about this at all. And it is still connected to China because not only am I talking about regionally Taiwan from 2003 and 2004, my experience there, but in every episode I also share what's going on in my current in China, in Shanghai, wherever I am that week for work, that kind of thing. So it's still connecting to China, and occasionally, you won't be surprised by this, linguistic-y things work their way in to the podcast as well. In fact, we have an entire episode on global English, and sort of one of those whose language is it anyway, why are people so picky about language kind of thingies. Bah. Anyway, so there's that. So yeah, there are times when the themes in when I'm learning in Chinese on this channel and what's happening to me as a fish out of water living in China, where those two overlap. And it's kind of weird because it's generally not planned and it just happens. So anyway, so I wanted to confess that I have been splitting myself between two projects, between three, but the third one's not up and running yet. But for now, I'm only cheating on you with one other person. When we move on to the third one, we'll have to consider this a polyamorous relationship. I don't know where this is coming from. Anyway, thank you, Lauren Without Fear, for the shout out during your live stream. Her channel, she started in Nanjing, she moved to Beijing, and now she's back in the US with some very interesting reverse culture shock videos. I don't think intentionally necessarily, but she's readjusting to being back in the US, even though she was overseas for, I believe, a year. But her Nanjing and her Beijing videos are awesome. She is a lively, personable, real, interesting person. And here's where her niche is. She deals a lot with anxiety and being real about your own mental blocks and pushing through them. That's why it's Lauren Without Fear. She pushes through and she does things. It's a language channel, right? She does things despite the fact that there are blocks that pop up, and there are things that she notices about her mental state that, and I'm not saying like mental state like extreme whatever, but I mean, we all have barriers. And when you go overseas, and I talk about this a little bit in the podcast, so this fits in really nicely. When you go overseas and everything you know is different, it's super challenging. And I found the hard way when I moved to Taiwan in 2003 that you really need to embrace those fears and embrace those struggles and embrace those anxieties. And I think that's why I latched onto her channel pretty quickly, is because she would talk about what's happening with those challenges, and she would go and do stuff anyway. And if anything, I think, if I may say this, I think some of the mental obstacles that she had fueled pushing herself to go do interesting things and to overcome hurdles. And they're awesome. I've only scratched the surface on her China videos, actually, and now she's home back in the US, in the Bay Area. I'm so jealous. I have serious homesickness sometimes, and then I don't, because I live in Shanghai, which is pretty friggin' international. But anyway, point being, her channel's awesome. I hope you check it out. So that's it. So I wanted to confess my love for both of you, my podcast and my YouTube channel, and there will be more videos coming today. But first I have to go to the bank and rescue my new ATM card so I can have access to my money again. I will probably talk about that experience on the podcast. Banking overseas when it's not your home country. That's probably coming in the next podcast, because this has been an experience. Thank you so much for watching, and more linguistic-y Chinese videos coming soon. Bye!